Hello, everyone. It is me, Candace, owner of Chubby & Coo's Mid-City Bookshop, coming at you live from the bookstore, from the sci-fi section. Even though we're talking about a fantasy book today, this is the easiest place for me to broadcast in front of. So I am really happy to be here today to talk to Christopher Buehlman, who is an author, comedian, and screenwriter from St. Petersburg, Florida. His novels include Those Across the River and The Suicide Motor Club. And his plays include The Last Neanderthals and Hot Nights for the War Wives of Ithaca. He tours the country most years, writing and performing at Renaissance festivals, which I know my crowd will super appreciate. He and his wife travel with their rescue dog, Duck, and a black cat named Jane Mansfield, who is proficient in ninjutsu. And he's normally has been a horror writer. And The Blacktongue Thief, which is the book we're discussing today, is his first foray into high fantasy. I'm super excited to talk about him because, no joke, this is probably one of the funniest fantasy books I've ever read. So welcome, Christopher. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Candace.
And so for folks, I mean, I assume no one has read this book yet because today is the book birthday. Happy book birthday.
Thank you so much. I'm really pumped.
Hooray. And so can you give a little introduction to our viewers of this book and what it's about?
Absolutely. The Blacktongue Thief is it's sort of a medieval dystopian fantasy novel because it takes place after calamitous goblin wars. Our main character is a thief. He does physically have a black tongue because his people do. He's what's called a Galt. There are very distinct countries in this book. He owes the Takers Guild, which is basically the Thieves Guild, a lot of money because that's how they do things. And when you get to a point where you can't pay them back promptly, and you will, they will put a tattoo on your face that invites people to slap you in taverns. And also they can call you in for what's called a deed indenture, where you basically have to go do whatever they tell you to do. So Kinch gets issued a quest that he doesn't understand. It's a need to know thing. And he's just told, follow this person, be in this place. And there are big wheels turning.
There are very big wheels turning. And in like the first few pages, there is a murder bird, which is really, really cool. A giant corvid that is awesome and murders a bunch of people. And that corvid is important to the rest of the book too. But that was super cool. So where did the murder bird come from? I wanted to ask you about that.
Well, in the reality of the novel, goblins are good at brewing up plagues. That's one of their kinds of magic. And they afflicted humanity with an equine plague called the Stumbles, and it killed off all the horses. Because in the first war, we kind of rode roughshod over them with our cavalry, and they didn't want that to happen in the second wave. So they took care of it. Now, human magic, there are human magicians who are very good at a magic called bone mixing, which is where they can sort of, it's almost like genetic tampering. You know, they can mix up different species. So what they managed to do is to breed up large, like deer-sized, flightless ravens, basically, that are, and, you know, if you know anything about corvids, you know how really smart they are. And these turned out to be a perfect military partner for the battered and now largely female human armies trying to resist the third wave of goblins.
Yeah, and I want to talk to you about the world building because, as you mentioned, I think it's very cool that like there are no horses basically in this world, or horses are extremely rare. because of the Goblin Wars. Like you said, they sort of wiped out all the horses because of the cavalry. And also because of these Goblin Wars as well, the world is mostly women. Because all of the men got sent off to war and they died. And then the Daughters' War happened, which is when all the women got sent off. And now the world is a lot mostly women. And so I was just wondering about the world building and your process that went into this, and like, why no horses and mostly women?
Well, I knew that I wanted to do a medieval tech fantasy world, but I wanted to break some of the tropes we're used to. Like I wanted to have a badly hurt world. And when you think about medieval stories, I mean, the horse is front and center, in Western medieval tales. So to get rid of them presents humanity on that tech level a huge challenge. But I also wanted to explore some societal changes. I didn't want to do the typical knights on horses and kings and thing. I thought, well, okay, so we've got these goblin wars. What might have happened if the goblins were very dangerous and very numerous, and they liked us as a food source? And it just seemed to me that an unprepared humanity could be very badly pushed into a corner. And we saw in the 20th century a hint of what that looks like with the catastrophic world wars we had. And we saw societal changes start to happen, but they didn't really push forward as a result of those wars. But I thought, what if something happened that was big enough where there was no choice? There just weren't enough men to continue running things as they had, so everything had to be turned on its head.
Yeah, and that's what I found, or one of the things that I found so interesting about this book, is because it is like a medieval fantasy. It's got all of the things that you expect from those books, but also it's super unique because it has all these different, like you just said, like it's different. It doesn't take place in the same kind of world. Things are very different in this world than they are in typical medieval worlds. So I liked that mashup of like the medieval fantasy that we all want, but also it's like totally different in its own way. And I thought that was super cool how you made it unique. And the other thing that I love about this book is Kinch, the main character. So this book is told from Kinch's point of view. And it legitimately feels like I'm just sitting in a pub with him and he's telling me this story. And I love that so much because it's just like, oh, I'm just listening to this story. And it's like, oh, I want to drink a beer while I'm reading this book. That's just what it feels like. So I wanted to ask about like the choice of doing that. Did it have to do with like his personality, or like, why did you decide to make it so personal?
Well, the way I start writing novels when I have an idea is I often do a writing exercise where I just start with a scene that interests me. Like, let me write a scene in this story. And the scene that I wrote was a thief waiting by the side of the road to ambush somebody. And but I told it in the third person that first time. So I wrote it like a more traditional, omniscient third person point of view kind of a thing. And it was grim. It was dark and bloody and grim. And I really enjoy. So here I saw an opportunity. I thought to myself, I could do a grim dark book. I like those. People like those. But I also like comedy. So I decided, what if this thief is just an incredible wise ass? What if he's funny and has a lot of gallows humor and just doesn't take himself for the rotten and horrible things that happen to him and to everyone very seriously? And furthermore, I thought, why not give him a god of mischief to worship so that he has got a divine mandate to play pranks or to say the wrong thing or to just cause hijinks?
And it's so good. It works so well. The humor in this book works extremely well for what it is. And it is like, because of that juxtaposition, right? There's a lot of super violent, dark things that happened in this story. And you have that juxtaposition of the humor there, that makes it not so grimdark, like you said. And that's it. And it just works super well. There are a lot of poop jokes in this book, which I laughed a lot at. So wait, I bookmarked my favorite one.
Oh, good.
My favorite poop joke in this entire book is, so Kinch has just met the person that he is supposed to follow on this mission that you talked about. And I won't give too much away about that person, but he's just met this person. And she asks him if he has magic, and he says not much, and she says, well, I have a little magic too, also not much. And he says, I didn't think the bird fell out of your ass. But it's like ours, it's like the medieval, that would be very dark magic. And then she squints at him and he says, but not black magic, brown. And it says, she searched brown magic for any possible meaning besides juvenile scatology. Finding none, she closed her eyes and shook her head in disappointment. It wouldn't be the last time. I died. I laughed out loud. And there are lots of jokes like that. You will be laughing out loud the entire book. Anyway, I had to get my favorite poop joke in there because it was so good.
I was hoping that's the one you meant.
So is that also your favorite one of all the poop jokes?
No, but it's it's so illustrative of their different characters, because they're the whole book isn't funny. Kinch is funny. Kinch is a funny person in an unfunny world. So he's always going to make the childish joke, because he hasn't been shown a lot of reason to take the world seriously because it's so horrible. So he's just going to amuse himself and his God, and that's it. And if it's poop jokes, then it's poop jokes.
Yeah, it's very good. And I wanted to talk to you about the swear words in this book. Now, for those of you watching, Tor put out an entire guide to swearing in this book that you can find on Tor's website. But I wanted to discuss this a little bit because there's several languages, not just one language, but Kinch can understand different languages. So there's all these different languages of swear words, basically, in this book. And so I know that you are a professional insulter on the Renaissance Fair circuit, which I think is amazing. And so I'm wondering how that influenced this book, and how did you come up with these words? I'm going to say cark from now on, and nobody will know what it is, and I will, and I'm just going to be like, haha, you cark.
Yes. How did I come up with them? That's really, I think the how did you come up with something question is one that any creative person is probably going to have trouble answering, because I don't really know where this comes from. I mean, it comes from me and the way I think. It's just, I find, I don't only find lowbrow things funny. I find lots of different things funny, but I had such an opportunity to exercise the lowbrow with this character. And being a well-traveled person, and also a person with a very special gift that allows him to read languages and immediately understand them, he has collected colorful language from many different cultures. There's a point where he's on a whaleboat. He's been pressed into hunting fucking whales when he just wanted passage somewhere. And somebody from a country called Unther, which is, I see it as very Teutonic, calls him something. And I didn't say the word, but he said, they called me a thing that means something you find in your scat that you don't remember eating. So I just love, because I was a French major in college, and I speak some Spanish, so I love the specificity of vulgarity in other languages. I love that the French have a verb called poustiller, which is to spit while talking. They got a whole verb just for that. We got to say, yeah, he spat while he was talking. It was terrible. No, the French person would say, oh yeah, bustier partout. So,
and when I read that, when the person insults him and you don't say the word, but you say what it is, I was like, man, we need a word for that in English. That is like a good insult, right? Like we have all of these like words in English, like a lot of insults revolve around like women and women's parts, and it's just like sort of gets old sometimes. So I'm like, I love the insults in this book. And I will tell y'all, you can read for a lot more insults, but my favorite was cark, like I said, and that means a wet fart. And I just was like, yes, like you cark, like that's just like the perfect insult to me, without like being degrading to anybody. It's just like, yeah, you stupid wet fart. Like,
and in Galtish Blacktongue society, that word is as versatile as fuck is in ours, because it can be you carking. This carking person came over. He's such a carker. What kind of carkery is this we're getting into now? So yeah.
It's the swear words are so good in here, and y'all should definitely read. I will find the link at some point and drop it in the chat for y'all to read that guide to cursing, because it's really fun, and it definitely gives you an idea of what you will get in this book if and when you read it, because you should. So also this book, I'm wondering, you do Renaissance fairs. I don't want to make any assumptions, but I'm wondering if you play D&D, because this book feels like a role-playing adventure that's super irreverent that I'm sitting around with my friends doing, and I love it.
Everybody is saying that. And the truth is, I haven't played Dungeons and Dragons for 33 years. I played a lot when I was a teenager, and true story, I stopped when I was 18 or 19 because I wanted so badly to write, and it was taking all my time. I was just doing campaigns. I was good at them. I liked them, but it was taking any creative energy or time. And I told myself I'm gonna stop. I'm not gonna let myself play again until I've published a book. Now that's been 11 years ago, but I still haven't picked it up again because I want to publish more books.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess what you're getting with the Blacktongue Thief is all the frustrated energy of all the D&D games I would have played had I not been doing this other stuff.
I know. I was reading this and I'm like, oh, I'm totally basing like my next D&D characters off of some of the characters in this book.
I wonder if somebody will do a module.
Ooh, that would be amazing. Yeah. I would totally do that.
I should tell you that the card game that is in there, Towers, is real. It's a real game. I'm working the bugs out of it. I was hoping to be able to have something ready by the time the book came out, but then the pandemic hit, and I couldn't have groups of friends play it anymore. Yeah. But I had just gotten back out on the Renaissance Festival circuit when like I told you before, I hurt myself, so I had to fly back home. But I will be back out on the circuit, and when I'm there, I'm going to be playing Towers with my buds and trying to knock the last bugs out of the game, because it's fun to play. It actually is addictive.
That's awesome, and like I cannot wait for that, because it sounds super fun when you like read about people playing it. There's another card game in this book too that's like easier or like a little bit less intense than Towers. They play it on the ship. I forget the name of it, but yeah, there's the Towers game sounds super fun.
It is. It's a little like it, because one of Kinch's gifts, and this is told early, so it's not a spoiler, but he's got two birth gifts. One is that he can read anything, and the other is that he's lucky, and that he has a relationship with luck where he can feel when he's in it and when he's out of it. So there are times when he's not going to be lucky, but he knows that, and he knows he's got to be conservative and careful. Which, can you imagine? That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, like, oh, yeah, not in. We're not going to do that.
Probably shouldn't do that. Yeah,
not going to do that. Or should we try to jump into that roof? Yeah,
let's
do
it.
Yeah. But when he starts playing, his luck revs up, and if he plays a game of chance and he starts winning too much, and he can actually use up his luck for real life things and make everyone in the game want to kill him. So he's got to be careful about that. But I thought, what card game do they have? What game of chance do they have? It's clearly not going to be just poker. So what would live in the space poker lives in our world? And I just came up with the name first, like towers. Okay, how do you play towers? You need towers. Okay, that's one card. What else? And then you got archers, and you've got sappers, and you've got thieves. But then you've also got soldiers and queens and kings, and then you have a couple of specialty cards which do really nasty things, and they can show up. Like there's a death card. If you get it in the first half of the game, probably shouldn't be telling everybody all the rules until I publish the game.
But you see, now everyone wants to play. So that was a very good, like, hey, play this game. Get this game when it comes out.
But it is a betting game. It is a heavy betting game. So, and I've played it for money. It's fun and it's brutal. You know how you ever play Risk and you have that thing, because you have different people you can attack, right? And there's always this rancor about, why did you do this to me? I had such a nice thing going, and now you're attacking me.
Yeah,
there's an element of that in this game, you know. So I could see where there'd be knives out.
Awesome. Is it just for 2 players, or is it because in the book it's like a whole table? It's like you say, like poker or something, like a whole table of people.
I think it's 2 to 5.
Cool.
2 to 5. It's a 60 card deck.
Awesome. Well, it sounds super fun. Now I can't wait for that to come out.
I'll let you know.
We'll be watching for it.
Yeah.
We also sell board games, and we have board game nights here and stuff. So it would be super fun to like play that with our board game folks.
Well, I got family in Lafayette, so I stop by New Orleans a lot. So
come on down.
Okay.
And so I want to talk about characters a little bit. I know we talked a little bit about Finch, but probably my favorite character in this book is Bully Boy, who is a cat. And it's a blind cat. And what I thought was really clever, and my first question is, did you do this on purpose? Is that Kinch. So there's a method of writing called Save the Cat, for those of you who don't know. And Kinch literally saves a cat. And so I didn't know if that was like a deliberate play on that, or not, because I was like, oh, this is a funny book and he's literally saving a cat.
I prefer to let you wonder.
Okay. I will then wonder, because it was good, and I was like, I see what you might be doing here. But Bully Boy is a blind cat that becomes sort of like a pet to Kinch and follows Kinch around. And I really like that he rows, because it's like it's RAO in the book, and it's not a meow, it's a row. And I thought that was like, yes, this is what a cat sounds like as someone who has cats. They row, they don't meow.
Yeah.
Exactly. So anyway, I just wanted to talk about Bully Boy. I know in your acknowledgments, you say Bully Boy is based off of a real cat, or inspired by a real cat. So I just wanted to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah. I was a very bigoted dog person. Like, I never cared for cats. I didn't get the attraction of them. I was allergic too, so I had some physical conditioning against thinking they should be in anybody's house. You know, and they seemed very much to be playing people. I was like, look, I see what happens with a dog relationship. Where's the mutual reward thing? I see what the cat's getting out of this, but you with the scoop and taking the nuggets out of the sand. Why? That's
fair.
Yeah. But you know, and my wife always told me, you know, she was my girlfriend at the time, and she was like, you just don't understand. There's a thing there. And she had a cat, and he disappeared, unfortunately. And about a year later, I kind of saw her getting cat curious again. I was like, there's gonna be another cat in this house here in a minute. And one showed up on the doorstep of this apartment we were staying in Oswego, New York. And he was enough like the other cat. Like he was also a brown gray tabby, but he didn't look like that one. He's very much his own thing. But I was like, oh no, oh no. I said, hey, you don't want to be here. You need to, because if she sees you, you're going to live here, and you're going to live with me, and you want to live with a guy who loves cats, and that's not me. And he just sat there on the stoop, And I said, all right, I'm going inside now, but we're going to a party in about 2 hours. So I would advise you not to be here. Or you're going to be our cat. Okay. And he stayed.
That's how they get you.
He stayed. And this is what I heard. This is a guy who at the time didn't want a cat. I heard, aww. I was like, oh, fuck.
Uh-oh.
So I was like, I'll go to the party. I'll say hello for you. You get to know your new friend. But then this little imp she told me he ran to my study. He ran to my room and wanted to be in my chair and wanted to be in, my space. And when I got back, sure enough, he was all over me. And he just wanted to live in my lap. We didn't even know he was blind at first. I mean, his eyes were messed up. He was a very sick street cat. I didn't know he was blind until I noticed he wasn't jumping. He would feel his way down off the couch. He would feel his way up the couch. And I was like, can he see? And then we noticed he would, when he's in a new room, he would run along the perimeters and use his whiskers to sort of tell where the wall was. And then he would even echolocate. I swear he would. He would make this deep, growly meow when he was in a new space. And I think he was figuring out how big the room was.
Yeah, that's so cool, actually.
Yeah,
that you could figure all that out.
Yeah, I should have put more of those details in there, but when you're moving a story along, you can't always linger. But he definitely converted me. Now I am bipedal. So I love you.
Awesome. Yeah. And the cat in this book is awesome for so many different reasons. I like all of the characters that travel together in this book, really, but the cat sort of makes it special for a couple of reasons that I'm not going to say because it would be spoilery. But the cat's super cool. And so, did you have a favorite character to write, or like one that you really didn't like to write?
Did I have a favorite? Well, Kinch, clearly. I mean, because he was the mouthpiece.
Mm-hmm.
But I liked them all for different reasons. I really liked how contrary. Oh, there are characters. There's a character later on in the book called Fulvir, who's a magician, a very powerful one, and he's very contrary. He's from a country that holds lying as a virtue.
Mm-hmm.
And you're actually insulting somebody if you tell them the truth in the wrong context. You've got to know when to do that and when not to do that. I liked Galva because she's very walled off. She's clearly been through hell because she was one of these women in the Daughters' War. She's probably about 30, but she was in it. She was in their version of D-Day, Stalingrad, and the Somme all rolled into one. But then there's Norrigal, and she's the apprentice to a witch, and Norrigal's always getting down on herself because she's newer at magic, but she's very powerful, but she'll fuck things up a bit. She's trying to make the camp warm, and she actually burns shit down, and they have to leave because they just made a bunch of light. So, so no, I didn't have any I didn't like to write. Because I would have cut him. Because I get to do that.
Yeah. And that whole scene, and I mean, I don't want to be super spoily, but Norrigal is an apprentice witch to this other witch called Dead Legs. And the whole scene where they first meet Dead Legs, which is basically the first thing that happens. They get sent on this quest or Kench gets sent on this quest. And they go to seek out this witch first. And it is like so cool and dark as well. Because there's some like she's called Dead Legs for a reason, is all I'm gonna say. And there's like some vest stuff, but it's very cool because her tower's upside down, but not. And so like they try to go in, and then it's like everything kind of flips on them. So it's so cool. I don't really have a question there. It's just
That's okay. That's okay.
Very cool.
Thank you. I started writing this book now it's 5 years ago. I started writing this thing in 2016. So there was a lot of layering and a lot of thinking and a lot of brainstorming and daydreaming that went into it. So, hearing, a smart person like you just loving it and gushing about it is a good payoff. So
that tends to be what I do. I get passionate, and I'm like, this part was really cool. I don't have a question, but it was very cool. So thank you for going with me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so also, is this a series? Will there be a sequel? Is it like planned? Ooh, okay.
It's a trilogy. This is going to be the Blacktongue series. And I have pretty good ideas about where things are going.
Yay.
So yeah. I'm still kind of in the planning stage. I write pretty fast. But yeah, I've still got some stuff to work out. And to be clear, when I say that I'm planning, it's like I'm more of a pantser about plot, but I really do like to have the elements of the world in place. So I've got set pieces I'm working on, and I've got cultures I'm working on and stuff. So yeah.
Cool. Do you have like a world building Bible where you keep track of all this stuff, or is it all just in your head?
Oh no, I have notebooks. In fact, I'm getting ready to crack open another notebook because I ran out of room in the first Bible. So
nice.
Yeah.
I always wonder that because some writers are like, "Oh, it's just all in my head," and I'm like, "How?" There's no way.
That ain't me. Nope.
Yeah. So it's very exciting that this is going to be a trilogy. And yeah, I'm excited for book 2 already, even though book 1 literally just came out today. Right here behind me. Y'all could buy it. I am going to mention, if anybody out there watching has questions, if you are on Facebook or YouTube, feel free to drop them in the chat. If you're on Crowdcast, there is an ask a question function. So feel free to do that. You can also, of course, buy this book because you should. It's very, very good. And you can buy it from tubbyandcoos.com and click on place an order and you can buy it. If you're on Crowdcast, you can click buy the Blacktongue Thief, and that'll bring you right to it. So of course I just wanted to mention that because everyone should buy this book as well. And so another question that I had about this book, there's all kinds of cultures, but also like monsters. So in this book, and I'm just wondering if you have like a monster manual that you work from, or like how do you choose which monsters to throw in? I mean, there's all kinds of things in this world. There's goblins, there's giants, there's sea monsters, there's like a whole bunch of different things. So I'm just wondering how you pick what to put in there.
Yeah, again, I can't really answer the how question. It just comes. I knew I wanted giants. I like one of the best things that you can do, in storytelling is to make things worse for the protagonist. That out of the frying pan into the fire thing. That's you need to do that. If you can do that on every page, you're doing well. You're going to find that you're pacing a story really well because people love conflict. Yeah. And story is conflict. So I thought, all right, so we've got these horrible goblin wars, and we know about that, and we know we're on a breather, and we don't know how long humanity has before there's a fourth bunch of attacks from these little fuckers. Well, what could go wrong? Oh my God, there are also giants in this world, and they have conquered a kingdom. They have conquered a city at the very top of the world. So that's the inciting event to the quest. So you're going to meet giants towards the end.
Yeah, I'm excited about the giants because they seem real cool. And it's like, well, clearly something is happening because, like you're saying, this is the inciting incident. So that's not spoiler. It happens at the very beginning that giants have taken over the city. And the whole book, you're like, but why? That's the big question of this book. I mean, I guess in most every book, but you're like, but why? Like, it's always been the goblins, and now all of a sudden giants have overtaken. And it's like, why? I don't know. Let's find out. And we're going on this super epic journey to find out. That's basically what the book is about.
And it was kind of nice to make humanity stand alone. Like, we don't really have living allied races. There's rumor that there were elves once upon a time, and that Kinch's people are what's left of them, but we don't know about any living. The only races that we know about that are humanoid are hostile. So there's talk of mermaids. There may well be mermaids in this world, or mermen, but yeah, you don't meet any in the book, but there are definitely goblins and giants, and we're a little surrounded. Yeah,
humans don't really have it too good in this world.
It's not
humans have it horrible in this world. It's like everything is out to get us, basically.
And I've always been fascinated by, you mentioned that I have a play called The Last Neanderthals. And I've always been fascinated by prehistory and the idea that there were different kinds of humans, like that we weren't all, one big species. There were ones that were kind of the same species, but kind of not. And so the idea that there was this competition to see which thread would survive was interesting to me. So I think that's what we're finding, what is happening in this world. Is it going to be goblins? Is it going to be humans? Is it going to be giants? We don't know. It ain't elves.
Nope. I guess we'll find out eventually. Yeah. Hopefully they can all live together in harmony.
Good luck with that. Good luck with that.
Right. That's what we always hope for, and it never works out. So what are you currently reading? Do you have any recommendations for us?
Well, actually, yeah. I just started an audiobook called Day Zero, which shares a book birthday with me. It's by Cargill. Cool. And I love this guy. He wrote one of my favorite horror screenplays, Sinister. Boy, that's a scary story, and it's hard to do horror well. I mean, I know it's a tough thing. That's why I love it. But he's really good at it. And the premise of Day Zero is that we are taking there's some kind of AI revolution happening, and it's going to be this nanny creature that is actually an AI tiger, and the little boy he's bonded to are going to be trying to survive this societal breakdown. And fascinating premise, and I am very interested. I'm only about a chapter and a half in because I got insomnia this morning and listened to some of it, and it's the man can write. It's good stuff.
Cool. Yeah. And that was another sort of basic question I'm sure you get asked all the time that I had for you is you were writing horror and you've written screenplays and stuff, and now this is your first foray into high fantasy. So I'm wondering why the switch?
Well, there are different reasons. I'll be perfectly honest. I mean, some of it's economic. I mean, I was kind of stuck in a cult status position. I was very mid-listy, and I was not having a breakout book. And my agent said, "What other genres do you love?" And I was like, "I love fantasy." She said, "Do you want to write a fantasy novel?" And I went, "Yes."
Nice.
Don't threaten me with a good time. And there's a thing about horror too. I think it's healthy to get out of it. I see myself going back to it, but it feels good to be out of it. Like, what's a good analog? Good analogy. So I play the professional insulter at fairs, but I also have another character I do called, which actually sort of ties in with what I just did in this book, called Filthy Irish Stories. And I do that only at the Sterling Renaissance Festival in West Central New York. And it's a delightful palate cleanser for me, because I'm insulting, and then I go do this ridiculous thing, and then I go back to insulting, and it's fresh again. I think when you just do one thing all the time, it may get a little old. Like, because think about it. You just keep writing horror. It's like, all right, so I got a premise for you. All right, okay, so listen to this. There are some people, and they get in a car, and they're driving. It's nighttime, and you know what happens? Something scary happens. Okay, wait, I got another one. Hold on. You see where I'm going with this? It was very freeing to write something where, yes, there are horror elements in this book, but they were entirely optional. They were not obligatory. So it was nice to be able to play with it and then leave it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some horror elements in this book, especially with, I feel like the tension of, you see something coming and you're like, oh no, what's gonna happen? Like, you see things. Sometimes literally you see things coming at you. Yeah. And it's like, oh my gosh. And then, or like I'm saying, like, humans just don't have it easy. Like, everything's after you. So there's always this, like, Kinch is constantly, and I mean, the whole group is looking over their shoulder, being like, okay, like, what do we have to fight next? What's going to get us? Right. Like, it's always that, like, something's going to get you feeling is in this book. So there definitely has that sort of like element of tension and, like, something's coming at me.
And one warning for readers is that I am not a fan of the predictable. So there may be some sharp turns. So be ready. And not everything's going to make sense, because not everything does.
That's true. It doesn't all make sense, but it's fun. Yeah. So, it just go along for the ride. And it never, like, there's definitely things that don't make sense, but it's not so much that you're like, oh, I don't want to read this anymore. Like, it's not like, oh, this completely doesn't make sense, I'm throwing this out. It's in the context of the world, it's like, yeah, it makes sense that this doesn't make sense.
Yeah. You have to make a covenant with the reader, and you have to keep that covenant. And I very much tried to do that. But what I'm saying is, there will be plot points, and there will be things that happen that don't necessarily have a deeper meaning, because I thought that was more naturalistic. I thought it was more the way we live our lives. I want the reader, and I do this in horror too. I want to make suspension of disbelief easy by grounding it in things that you do know. Mm-hmm. These are I try to make them feel like real people. These are people who have to oil their leather shit before it rains, or they're going to get soaked. So there's going to be time when they're talking and working oil into the leather of a boot, and then hanging the boot out the window so the sun will heat the leather and make it drink the oil. It's a lived-in world.
It is definitely a lived-in world. And that's one thing that I liked about it, is that there are all of these things that are just, it makes it more real. That these like, they have to oil their stuff and put it out, and and none of it feels out of place. It all of it just kind of makes it feel more real. And that was my favorite thing about reading it, is that, again, it's like I'm sitting next to somebody having a drink at a pub, and they're telling me this story, And that's what it feels like. It really does. And I mean, he exaggerates at points, but it's kind of always with like a wink and a nod, like you kind of know. And so it's just absolutely delightful. Thank you so much for writing this book. I'm so glad it's out in the world, and everyone should buy it.
Well, thank you for the delightful interview. It was a great pleasure talking to you.
Yes, and thank you very much. And one more plug for the book. Since y'all haven't seen it yet, y'all see it behind me, but this is an up close cover of the book, which is very, very cool. They're like walking. There's like a tower, and anyway, the forest. Very cool. And you can order the book at tubbyandcoos.com and place an order, or if you're on Crowdcast, hit Buy the Blacktongue Thief, and definitely buy it because it's very, very good and you will be thoroughly entertained. And thank you so much, Christopher, for joining me today. Happy book birthday.
Thank you, Candace. This is a delight.
And hopefully I'll see you at some point in New Orleans.
I would love it. I'll come by.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
See you later. Bye-bye.